So now we're joined by Paul, CryptoHippie. I know previously you were telling us about your VPN service. A couple years ago, we talked about CRISPR gene editing.
Yes,
but what are you working on now, Paul? What's going on?
oh my. Well, I'm doing a lot of writing
Mm-hmm.
at Freeman's Perspective.
Cool.
Managing CryptoHippie.
Mm-hmm. Still is having the VPN service. Now,
Yeah.
You are an independent VPN service. A lot of people, they trust larger VPN service, but there could be a problem there. You're probably putting your data in with a bunch of other bad data, and if somebody came along and bought all that bad data, boy, that would be bad for you and everyone else,
It's
right?
worse than having, in some ways, it's worse than having no service at all if the people you're trusting are reselling your data. And the truth is, if you're going for a cheap service
or free,
or God forbid free,
which is very popular buzzword these days,
it's just ridiculous because nobody can run a service for free. You can't. I mean, I know. I see
you really
bills.
do. You get what you pay for. I mean, we were sweating it out here with Open Broadcaster, great open source software project, about a zillion settings. We set about 999 of them correctly, but not the rest of them. Then here we switched over to Zoom, where we're paying $15 a month. A small fortune eventually at the end of the year, but now it seems like it's working because we're paying.
Well, you've got people who it's their job to make sure it works.
That's right.
And with VPNs, first of all, you need quality. Either that, or I mean, if you just want to watch Hulu, okay, fine.
Sure.
Right,
yeah. If you just want to watch the BBC player, you need to be in England. You want to get your rugby updates.
Right. So, but if you want actual privacy, you need multiple hops. You need all kinds of stuff. Your VPN should have its own key server. So, because we know for a fact that these have been compromised. The Snowden documents, and this was 2013 or 2012. I don't remember what the document date was, but they've all been blown through. You have to run your own key infrastructure. You should be managing your own DNS. All these things take money.
Yep.
They're not easy. Even if you could find competent people to do it, which is a first step.
That's it. Yeah, it's also about the complexity and the skill level involved. To be really sure that you are protected and your privacy is protected. You need to know all of the areas to know where the holes are, to know that you filled them. So it's not just the money side; it's the whole complexity.
Right, because the people who are trying to blow through your privacy are skilled, and they have money. I mean,
and they're also being paid.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're also being paid.
All the spies, all the buildings full of Russian agents or whatever it is, all collecting paychecks, working 9 to 5s, hacking your privacy. You might not care about your privacy very much. You spent 15 minutes on it. They'll spend 8 hours breaking it.
That's right. Exactly right. So you have to have people that are committed to it, you have skill, and we have to pay our bills. I cannot sell a VPN for $5 a month. You can if you sell really poor quality. You get a real cheap server somewhere and just do an in and out, and then you put up an ad and says, I have 500 servers in 423 districts, and we have 2.6 million users, and you can put anything up on a website.
Sure.
And I think some do. I don't really know. But you can do anything like that, but to run an actual service that really does it, it's hard. It's a job.
Yeah.
What we do it.
Have you heard about Brave Browser? Brave Browser is launching some kind of a VPN or a VPN infrastructure, maybe even. Is that interesting to you, or just another flash in the pan?
I don't know. I haven't had the time to look into all the details of the new thing. The Brave Browser is quite a good browser. It does a good job.
Built-in Tor as well.
It does a good job. Tor is not. People trust Tor too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was some years ago now, but around the time of the Ross Ulbricht thing, the number of Tor nodes doubled in a month. So guess who's running the Tor nodes?
The exit nodes.
Yeah. And so they got sniffers, and they got some way of doing sideways something or another.
Well, it always seemed bad that Tor was created by the Navy. I know it's great. It's great to say it. Sure, we're using the internet here, and the internet was a ARPA project, DARPA, all those things. Right. But yeah, it just always gave me the little bit of the creeps. They're like, let's use this cool multi-hop software, all this stuff. I'm like, it's really slow, but I feel secure. Right. But then, yeah, there's that little Navy thread hanging out.
Yeah, it is kind of a little bit of a, pay attention to me.
But it is open source, though, right, Tor?
I believe so.
It is,
so everyone can see the
open source
code,
is just as good as how many programmers you have monitoring the source.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah, many hands and many trust.
That's true.
So,
right. Yeah. It's a lot to analyze.
Yeah.
But and there are ways to use Tor properly. Ask Smuggler; he can tell you the details. But there's one way to do it, but you have to be a real competent network administrator to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, you maybe make it worse.
Yeah.
Well, we've all seen the Snowden documentary or maybe the Oliver Stone film. And the first thing he has the journalists do is put their phones in the Faraday cage, then they put them in the freezer. It's not enough to turn it off. It's not enough to cover it up or put it under your bag or whatever. You got to get rid of that thing. And even recently he was talking about his phone and how he took the microphone out and he took this out and that out. And we were talking to Peter Todd yesterday, and he was like, did you know you can use an accelerometer as a microphone? Did Snowden take that out? Did he take this out? There's all these things that could be dual function, dual use. Actually having that privacy is a very difficult thing to actually have.
I use a 1990s flip phone. Well, it does what I need. Yeah. I don't really care about having an app for Chinese food. I've got a telephone.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I want to order Chinese food, I'll order Chinese food. I don't need to, do all the other things.
I'm at a certain point, I'm not sure if other people need to either, or if they're just addicted to it. I mean, I know I'm pretty much addicted to Twitter now. I'm checking it all the time. I've got the stats on it, which only hasn't quit. I haven't quit, but it makes it worse because now I know exactly how much time I'm wasting. Well, and the university degree in Twitter I could have gotten, but
you probably can't you?
It's never too late. I can start mailing in my 12 hours a day I've been spending on Twitter and get credit from Jack.
Well, one of the things that I've done for years, I'm a writer. And so I don't want to be interrupted. I do, and I don't want to be interrupted anyway.
Yeah.
Because, thinking in pieces this long, you just can't think very deeply. And, you want to think in big, long chunks. So what I did is I scooted everybody who, this is back in the 90s when people really started using email. But I scooted everybody from telephone to email because email never interrupts me. I don't put a noise on it,
Yeah, yeah.
It never interrupts me. I may check it 5-10 times a day, but it's the times when I'm ready to check it and it doesn't interrupt me.
I saw a great description recently where someone went back and they used an old 486 computer. And they're like, I loaded up the word processor program and it was amazing. There was nothing to distract me. I couldn't check my email, no sports scores, no nothing, just word processor. And everything else turned off. And you can get there. You can go full screen with your Mac and stuff, and you can get that software that blocks you from the internet. But I know how to turn that off because I'm the one that installed it. So that never works. At screen time, it was like, you're past your limit. And I'm like, oh, yeah? And that was over with that. And again, if you're going to give someone else control over your software and you have to negotiate with your IT department to get back in, I just wouldn't give them control in the first place. So,
there you go.
But yeah, it was amazing to think back how a distraction-free computer used to be what we all had.
Right, and I keep mine that way because I just, I used, one of the email programs I had would put up notice. Oh, you just got an email from.
Oh yeah.
I turned it off. I don't want because I'll check it. Multiple times a day, but I do not want to be interrupted by it. I want to do my stuff and think till I'm done thinking or write till I'm done writing or whatever it is.
And what have you been writing about recently?
Oh, boy. I just wrote a book that I probably has been building for decades. And it's called Discourses. This is really philosophical. Discourses on Judaism, Jesus, and Christianity.
Interesting. Yeah. Historically or religion-wise, what kind of aspect are you
more historical, I suppose, but really, it's a really interesting field to discover what did actually Jesus teach. And where did it come from? Nobody knows this, but the Jews were, they broke off from the religion of the Sumerians.
Yes, yeah.
And, nobody really understands that. And so that's interesting. And following the Jewish or Hebrew, and then, I mean, what's the difference between the Hebrews and Jews? Well, the name changes at about 500 BC. Okay, well, same guys.
Yeah.
But the history is a very, very fascinating one. There's a lot of things in there you would not expect. And then dealing with Jesus and what did he actually say? How do we know what he actually taught? And one of the big moments for me that really made me write this book now was that realizing that Christianity is not the religion of Jesus, it's a religion about Jesus. And I've known that for years, but just putting it in those words really kind of spurred it for me that I had to
he wasn't really the one that started the church. That kind of started after him.
Well, yeah,
in the
depending
books
how you think about it. And in the beginning, there were many churches. The Catholic Church was just one of many for a long, long time. And there's all sorts of other things that feed into it. Early Europe and how it formed and everything. It's just
I do agree with you on the Sumerian and the early roots. A lot of these stories were told over and over again. The story about the flood, the story about sending the son off, the prodigal son comes back. A lot of these, and what I like about these stories is the moral and the message. It's still there. We can still get it in a different language, different system. Change the name to Noah. Whatever you got to do, we're still talking about the lesson. It's a lesson. It's an educational
thing. That really got me with on the Sumerian Hebrew connection. And I was reading whatever the history, Samuel Noah Kramer and the other Assyriologists they used to call them. There's this thing in the Old Testament, you've seen it, where somebody was guilty of a capital crime, death by stoning.
Yep.
And I always thought there's something more to this that doesn't show up in the book, because these people had to have some reason why stoning. Why not? There's 10 other ways to kill folks.
Sure.
Yeah. Why stoning? And I always wondered about that, because it's not in the book. It's like everybody knows the reason, and they just assume that everybody knows the reason, so why bother writing it? I found it from the Sumerians. I was reading, I think it was either Kramer or Stephen Langton, one of the guys who really did the real, spent years reading cuneiforms.
Sure.
The Sumerians would take a stone, and they would write on the stone the name of your crime. They would write murder or whatever it is on the stone. And so symbolically, you were being killed with your own crime. It's like, that makes sense.
That does make more sense.
That makes sense. And I got it from the Sumerians. So for all the other pieces that I had, and you can trace them historically, they went from here to there and how they did. And the names, there's a great place. There was an archive they found at a city called Ebla. And all the names are Hebrew names, and they're all shared, all kinds of, they even got parts that ended up in the Bible, that almost the same exact verse is in the archives of Ebla, which is 2200 BC. And
wasn't there am I right in thinking that there's a kind of Jesus-like figure in the Sumerian religion, that it was like 12 he had like 12 friends, and he was born on
not that I'm aware of. There wasn't that type of thing, although there always been figures.
The Messiah, that idea, a lot of chosen ones.
The funny thing about the Messiah thing, it appears almost nowhere in the Old Testament. Almost not at all. I think there's just one or two things, and when it's usually used, it's a Messiah, somebody who was sent to do a particular job. But this idea of the Messiah doesn't really, just, you can interpret a few little things, but it just barely exists. And it's one of the other little funny little things you see over time.
I read Richard Carrier's on the historicity of Jesus, and that's really interesting.
I've never read it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It literally, he looks at all the kind of philosophers at the time, what they were saying, and he tries to put together a picture of what was Jesus a single person? And there's evidence for, there's evidence against, but it's a very, I definitely recommend that book.
Yeah, it's interesting to find the various pieces you can find of evidence. Pretty much nobody who studies in length questions that there was an actual person, Jesus, who died in roughly 30 AD. Everybody fights about the dates.
There's a little bit of a 200-year gap before they start writing about it. So that seems
no, there's not.
It's not?
No,
Is it
not
closer
at all.
than that?
Not at all. First of all, we have letters from the 50s AD, so 20 years afterwards.
Good.
We have things that were, those are, they were written in 51, 52 AD.
Yeah.
So we have that for sure. And we have historical accounts from Romans and from 110. There's a guy named Pliny the Younger, and he's in this little area of what's now Turkey, and he's writing to Trajan saying, how do I deal with these people? And it's great because he tells what they believe and what they do. It's a thank God we got that little.
What a great letter! Yeah, interesting.
You can find it on the internet.
Yeah.
It's out there, and it's his letter to Trajan and Trajan's response. It's all there.
Wow.
It's freaking awesome that we even have it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned stoning. I'm reading this really interesting book now called Fail or Doge in Hell, and it's by Neil Stephenson. He's written a lot of books, Seven Eves and Snow Crash, stuff like that. Cryptonomicon, of course. Yeah, Diamond Age. Diamond Age. But this one, I'll give you a little bit of it first. So there's a little bit about a computer guy that dies and what they're going to do with his brain because he's into life extension. So that's part of it. Then there's a little bit about a fantastic internet hoax that the town of Moab, Utah has been destroyed by a nuclear bomb.
Oh my.
And the guy goes there and he's like, it's not happening, it's fake. But then there's this kind of schism in reality where a bunch of people believe that it was nuked and they stick with that. Right. Then there's an attempt to destroy the internet by overloading it with false information so that when people would switch to a trusted internet, the kind of thing we talk about with blockchains and crypto and these things, only it backfires. It turns out that now there is no reality and all kinds of people have no reality and you have to pay an editor to edit your internet stream in and out. And if you have a better editor, you have a better truth. And if you don't, you have no truth. You have no information. And so the world there's this America stan where it's become very religious and a little backwards in some ways. But one of the little tidbits about that he just revealed that he's like, they'll shoot you now because they've decided that bullets equals stones. So shooting is the new stoning. Okay. And they're totally fine with it. And they're like, well, how can you, they're like, they don't like technology. They don't build the guns themselves. They buy them, all these things, but they're like, these are now holy weapons. They're holy stones that you're stoning with. So just a little bit more onto the stoning idea.
Back to Jesus, whoever kills you will think he's doing God's service.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that is the problem with all religious
That's a cool story.
Yeah, and I have no idea how the book's going to turn out. They did a little tour through America Stan, and there's a lot of little religious tidbits about what the people believe, but mainly it's this schism of this Moab, whether it exists or it doesn't exist. Right. And in a way, it has a little bit of tinge of 9/11 in there, if you want to get into that. But no, it's a really good and interesting book. So
I've been working on a couple of stories. One of them has been published already. It's called Return Engagements, and it's a way, and it's scientifically not crazy to where and I'm a character in the story actually. I jump back in time.
Okay.
And the first one, I'm back in 1963, and this is actually, I wouldn't say it's scientifically correct because time travel is not possible so far as we know, but it's an alternate special way of doing it that doesn't violate the laws of physics.
Right.
At least so far as I understand them. Nobody really understands them all the way. But it was a lot of fun like that, back in and I have another one that I'm working on now back in 1978. And and if you fix up 1963 or 1978, if you do a good enough job, then our present time gets a little boost, a little shot of benefit. So it's fun.
It's a lot of good ideas out there in time travel, and just the idea you're really just kind of taking apart history and write a little what if, a little variation.
Yeah,
I was talking this morning about the movie Yesterday. The Beatles. It's a relatively new movie, and I wish that it was better than it is. The trailer is fantastic. It's full of possibilities. It's kind of a Philip K. Dick idea, like everything these days. But this guy has a bicycle accident, and he wakes up, and he's in a world where no one remembers the Beatles. So there are no Beatles. And he happens to be a musician. So he's got a guitar, and he can sing, and he remembers. And so he starts remembering all the Beatles songs, and he starts playing for people, and they go crazy because they've never heard the Beatles. These are fantastic songs. Yeah. So, and then it kind of drifts off, and it's just a romance, and there's no conspiracy, and there's nothing interesting. I wrote the guy today. I was like, this movie could have been so much better. He's like, how? And then I nailed him with it. I was like, well, I got two for you. One, at the end, he wakes up, he was in a coma, and he realizes that fame is worthless, and he should date and marry this teacher girl that he likes. Right. And he learns a lesson. And that would have been great. Like simple, it's still a romance, easy. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't do that one, because that was right there. And then if you really want to get into it, there's two other people in the movie who also remember the Beatles. And they're kind of creepy because they're kind of sneaking around. He's always worried he's going to be found out, or Paul's going to show up, or John's going to show up. He's like, oh my God. But you have these two people be Russian spies. The Russian developed some kind of time weapon, because Coca-Cola also doesn't exist. So I was like, wipe out the Beatles, wipe out Coca-Cola, Russian time weapon. They're chasing this guy. It's a chase. It's a thriller. And then at the end, this American cowboy spy comes in. He's been watching the whole thing. He saves the day. It all wraps up in a balloon. It's perfect. Puts on his white hat. And he talks with a Southern accent, the whole thing. It could have just been the funnest movie, but instead it's just kind of a basic Beatles
the little
movie.
Thing that I thought of, and this is really arcane Beatles stuff.
Yeah.
But they should have found, and somewhere in the movie, there should have been some guy with the guitar making the chords for Yesterday, singing "Scrambled Eggs."
You know
the story behind that?
Sure. Paul woke up, and that's all he could think.
Right. That's the only thing he could put onto the song was "Scrambled Eggs." And so then the guys used to say, "Hey, Paul, what about scrambled eggs? You got anything more?" "No, not yet, man." "Okay, well, work on scrambled eggs."
Well, the best part too is that he went around to everyone else, and he was like, did I hear this? I didn't write this. This is so good. I must have accidentally stolen it. It happens all the time.
It does.
Robin Williams, all these other people. You steal a joke, you steal an idea, it gets to a bigger joke, bigger idea. But no, he couldn't find anyone, and he's like, "Oh, I guess I wrote it." In the nighttime. Amazing. But
because I'm something of a musician when I actually have time, and I've done things. Oh, this is really good. Is that? Did I hear that somewhere?
Yeah,
that's
like a classical piece.
That's what I feel. Yeah, yeah.
It's so excited about a riff, and then shown my friend and said that, and he's played it back.
Right. You're playing Stardust, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I should probably go, and we should probably get him in here.
All right. Well, very cool. And where can people check out CryptoHippie, the VPN service that you get what you pay for?
CryptoHippie.com.
All right.
And actually, here's
privacy first, people.
And then here's select.cryptohippie.com, which is the new service, which is freaking awesome. iPad, iPod, whatever. And it works on other things as well.
Android?
Yeah, it'll work on Android too.
Nice.
It does all the setup for you, and not only excellent VPN, but encrypted anonymous email.
Wow.
Right through the iPad on the Mail app.
Brilliant.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, and people should check that out at CryptoHippie.com.
Yep, please.
All right. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks for
joining
me.
us. Interesting topics. Yeah.
My pleasure.